Florida falls to Georgia. Final score, Florida 20, Georgia 43. It's Tell the Truth Sunday here. So what we do on Tell the Truth Sunday is we don't sugarcoat it. We also don't go Johnny Raincloud on you and try and just tell you that the sky is falling. We take an honest assessment of what happened yesterday, and we tell the truth about it. This game is going to be no different. Florida will be no different. We'll talk about it right now. Really quickly, though. Florida Gator fans, we had a lot of y'all join the party recently. We're glad to have y'all here. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything that we got going on right here on this channel. Florida now got a chance to be bowl eligible. They've already surpassed, I think, a lot of people's expectations. They're making some noise right now. We're going to talk about the Billy Napier era, and what they're doing in 2023. Make sure you're subscribed and follow me on Twitter and on Instagram so you don't miss a minute of what we got going on right here. Thank you so much in advance for that. So, like I said, Tell the Truth Sunday. Is it ever good to lose by 20 plus to your rival? No, of course not. Like, that's the most no-duh statement of all time. We got to use proper context here, though, because we all understand for Florida to have won that game yesterday, it would have taken their best effort of the season, arguably their best effort of the Billy Napier era. That's a really well-coached football team at Georgia. That's a really deep football team at Georgia. They're going to make a lot of noise here when it comes to the SEC title race. Obviously, I think the college football playoff and the national title race, obviously, as they have the last couple of years. So, again, we're not excusing it. We're saying proper context. It is not surprising that Georgia won that game yesterday because of what they have in-house and because of what they've built to. Billy Napier, we say it a lot on here, he's there for a reason at Florida. He wasn't hired at Florida because everything was just rolling and the other coach went to the NFL. No, Kirby Smart kind of threw some shade post-game about Dan Mullen and what he didn't do stocking the coverage for Billy Napier, and so they're kind of in climb back mode. It's hard to be in climb back mode in the SEC. Again, not making excuses, just making sure the table is properly set for this conversation. So, we got good news, we got bad news. Now, me personally, I always like to get the good news second, so I sort of ended on a higher note whenever I heard that good news. So, no different here. Bad news first. You don't excuse it, but you learn from it. The line of scrimmage, especially on defense, was the issue. Now, that has been the issue multiple times throughout the season. You look at the Kentucky game. You look at what happened yesterday. You could not get the push you needed to get against Georgia yesterday up front, and they ran for 171 yards on 4.5 yards per carry. You did things you can't do against Georgia. You can't have a punt get blocked. You can't have a fumble, a strip sack in your own territory. You can't go 0 for 2 on fourth down. Now, kind of put an asterisk next to that. I love the aggression by Billy Napier to go for it. I think you needed to be aggressive in that spot. I think hindsight's 20/20. You go for it in those spots, but you got to be more efficient. You got to convert. Again, hindsight's 20/20. It's easy to play armchair quarterback here on Sunday morning. But again, you have to be able to keep drives extended, and you can't have those situations where you hurt yourself. Okay? So, that's the obvious. The bad news is line of scrimmage, personnel-wise, is still not at the level of which you need it to be to compete for what Georgia's competing for, and you got to play cleaner. A team that's learning to consistently bring it week in and week out, and they did not execute at the level they had to execute yesterday. That's the bad news. That's the no-duh statement from yesterday. All right? Now, I think there are some things, though, you have to appreciate. On the good news side of things, like you got outplayed, and that's not good news. But when I look at this Florida team, I say it every single week, man. And this is not something that we're planning to say every single week. I watch it every single week because I think it's important, especially in a time for a young team under a relatively new staff. Like, there's a tremendous amount of buy-in there. Got outplayed, but there was never any point where you saw Florida just say, hey, white flag, hey, we're done. We actually, no mas. We're going to go ahead and tap out here, whatever. They were down at one point, I believe it was 36-7. They could have rolled over. They could have played dead. That could have been like, hey, we're good. I understand. Y'all are the big dogs, or y'all are the national champs. Back to back, mind you. Like, we're going to keep climbing here. We'll take our lumps and call it. Like, I never saw that from this team yesterday. That takes buy-in. That takes belief. That takes togetherness, and we see that week in and week out from Florida. The same reason they came back from 10 down against South Carolina in the fourth quarter is why they stayed in the fight yesterday. And it's not going to show up in the box score. It doesn't really show up when you look at the final score. But I think when you talk about the trajectory of this team, you can't put a price and you can't overstate the importance of where this locker room is at right now, because I think it's in a really solid, healthy place. Now, it's going to be important for them to continue that going forward, but I just want to make sure we all acknowledge that. Florida has no quit in them. And it's not just because it was your rival across from you. It's because that's who they are, and that's who they are under Billy Napier. They believe in Billy Napier. All this talk around where Florida's headed under Billy Napier and all this talk around, well, is he the right guy? Is he not the right guy? That's all outside noise, and we'll eventually get the answer on that. But I promise you, the team in that building, they believe he's the right guy because they're playing like it with how they continue to battle for him. Now, Graham Mertz, was it a perfect day? No, we talked about that. I thought he kept slinging. I was impressed by his effort and especially the way that he was efficient early on in that drive. You will not see a tougher defense than what you saw yesterday if you're a Florida Gator fan. And I think you really have something in Eugene Wilson. And that Florida staff thinks they have something in him. By nature of how they force-fed him the football, 11 receptions, had a touchdown to start the game. He's a problem in space. I tweeted it out. He changes the entire complexion of what Florida can do offensively. Florida, they want to play with tempo in a slower fashion. They don't really want to go super hurry up, but they want to be able to control the tempo of the game, rather. Pound the rock, move the line of scrimmage. They're building towards that, personnel-wise and schematically, but it's much easier to do that when you can touch pressure points within a defense and get them moving and get them sort of having to respect the edge game of what you're going to do if you want to put it on the perimeter. Eugene Wilson is going to be really good in Gainesville for a long, long time. Want to make sure we're all aligned on that. Yes, they lost yesterday, but Eugene Wilson, to do what he did against that defense as a true freshman, y'all, you don't really do that against a Georgia defense. You don't go out there and get buckets like he did and play in space the way he did and make guys miss in space the way he did as a true freshman. So Eugene Wilson, what he put on tape and what he's going to be going forward for Florida, again, changes the entire complexion of how they operate offensively. He is so dynamic. They're going to need to get him the ball in space on the perimeter consistently like they did yesterday. So we talked about that internal temperature, that locker room, what they're going to be going forward, trajectory, all those buzzwords. That's going to be tested going forward because it doesn't get any easier. You got Arkansas next week in the Swamp. That is a huge game. If you're going to just be honest with yourself, that is the most winnable game. Not that you can't still win out, not that you can't still win all the games left on your schedule. You can. Will you is a whole other conversation that we'll get to as we go on throughout our time here on this channel talking about Florida. But Arkansas is a team that you can get. You can get to 6 wins. Lock up bowl eligibility. Lock up the over on that 5.5 over-under win total that everybody was talking about during the season, or rather during the preseason, the SEC Media Days, and what Florida wouldn't it be. I think that would, again, set a tremendous trajectory for where they're headed. Now, you still have at LSU, at Missouri, and then you have Florida State to finish the year. This is going to further test the resolve. Further test what this locker room is made of, what this team is made of, and what they're going to be for the foreseeable future under Billy Napier. Because the way that I look at it now, Florida and Billy Napier right now, with the way that this program is at a certain point and what they have left on the schedule and the way that they're fighting to get back to a place where they want Florida football to be, in my opinion, they're under the barbell right now. And what I mean by that is the bar that they're trying to carry, the bar they're trying to push back up, that's heavy. The Florida brand, the history of Florida, being in the SEC, the expectations, the schedule, who you have to play against week in and week out from a talent level. They're under that bar right now, and it's heavy. They're carrying it, but it's heavy. They're at this point now where they need to push that up. The rest of the schedule, you get a win at LSU, you get a win against Florida State, at Missouri, any of those wins, that would be a tremendous movement forward. That would be a tremendous effort in lifting that bar back up. Because once that bar gets back up, this is the toughest part. This is the heaviest it'll be for Florida. Once you push that back up, if they can do that, you're that much stronger. You're that much more of a force. And everybody in America, including recruits, will see you push that bar back up. Florida, they're working with juice right now on the recruiting trail. I think it's a lot about creating snapshots and creating a belief within what they're building there. They already have built that, I think. But again, you get to 7 wins. You say, hey, look at where we're headed. Look at last year. Look at where we're trending right now. Come be a part of this. You see what we're doing here? You see Eugene Wilson playing as a freshman. You want to have a chance to go contribute in the SEC at a place like Florida? I think that's the direction they're headed, and I think that's something that is in front of Florida right now. The strain of right now is going to make what they're going to be in the future. You had expectations if you're a Florida fan, as you do every year, and you should. By nature of resources, by nature of what you put into your program, you should have expectations. But I think the majority of individuals, in Gainesville included, understood it was never just about this year for Florida. This year for Florida was a table-setting year. And the game against Georgia, you don't excuse it. You never excuse a loss. Never. Period. Mic drop, the end. But you do have to learn from it and use it as a measuring stick for what you can be going forward. Yesterday, you saw the measuring stick. Hey, line of scrimmage, we're not there yet. Hey, operationally, we're not there yet. Execution from quarter to quarter, we're not there yet. We're going to get there if we stay the course here and do the things it takes, but we're not there yet. How far off? I don't think it's quite as far as a lot of people want to assume. Now, you got to build the roster accordingly. Got to take the proper steps, like I already said, but I don't think they're that far off like some people might want to pretend. I'll say this, too, before we get out of here. This is the toughest place to build from a conference perspective. Like the SEC, when you get under that bar, like we were talking about a little bit ago, that bar is heavy, heavier than most places. It's not a stretch to say it's harder to build in the SEC than it is in the Big 12. No shade on the Big 12 or other conferences. Like every single week you play against NFL caliber talent and you have to find a way to get your roster to match that. And if you don't, that's the price of admission. There's no faking it in the SEC. There's no way to be gimmicky in the SEC as much as some people might want to believe. So for Florida going forward, they're trying to build it in the toughest place possible. But I'm excited under Billy Napier with the buy-in that I see, with the recruiting juice they have and the trajectory I think they have the potential to set for this season going forward. A lot to look forward to at Florida. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Let me know what you think about your team as it pertains to right now and the future under Billy Napier. Get at me on both those platforms. Again, at JD Piquel, Twitter and on Instagram. Hey, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.